Rigging and frame-by-frame are animation techniques. Rigging relies on technology to make the process of animation a little easier, while frame-by-frame is a traditional technique of animation. Rigging is composed of two main aspects: the object to be animated, whether it is a drawing or a 3D object, and the rig, also known as the skeleton. The latter is mapped onto the object to be animated, and its purpose is to move it in all kinds of ways. The reason it is also known as a skeleton is because it sort of functions like one. The body is the object of animation, and the skeleton is the rig that helps move the object around. It also helps understand hierarchy in rigging. For instance, the knee bone cannot move the whole leg, only the thigh bone can. The hierarchy is also present in rigging and helps make the animation more complex and realistic. This technique is used in modern cartoons a lot. An example would be Rick and Morty, and it is safe to assume most modern cartoons use it as well. Frame-by-frame, on the other hand, is the traditional approach to animation. The simplest way to understand it is the flipbook animations we all made when we were children. You have a small notebook and you draw a series of consecutive actions on it so that when you flip it, it would look like the action is taking place. Frame-by-frame animation was used in legacy Disney animated movies, and this technique is largely the reason why those animations are so flowy and dreamy. Let's talk history. Frame-by-frame animation is the oldest of the two, so it only feels appropriate to start with it. Frame-by-frame animation traces its roots back to the 19th century, starting with the phenakistoscope, a spinning cardboard disc that has an action sequence drawn on it with a handle and small openings that you peer through, facing a mirror, to see the animation. It then became the zoetrope, replacing the disc with a cylinder. And lastly, it evolved into the praxinoscope, where instead of slits, there were mirrors to reflect the rapid succession of drawings happening. An important evolution in the history of animation is the first ever animation, Gertie the Dinosaur by Winsor McCay, which is widely known as a pivotal moment in the history of animation. From there came the Walt Disneys and Warner Bros. And their animation wonders. The quote-unquote last evolution of the history of frame-by-frame animation is going from the use of pens and papers to using computers, becoming what we know now as the frame-by-frame animation. As for rigging, it was introduced in 1988 by Nadia Manuna Thalman, Richard Laperriere, and Daniel Thalman. In their paper, Joint Dependent Local Deformations for Hand Animation and Object Grasping. Rigging first started as a technique for 3D animations. Naturally so, as 3D animations rely heavily on it, while 2D animation were initially based on the frame-by-frame technique. But then, rigging became the next step in the evolution of 2D animation after the digitalization of frame-by-frame animation. Software and tools used for each. Usually, any software that is dedicated for 2D animation contains tools for both frame-by-frame animation and rigging animation. But of course, some are more specialized in one thing than the other. Toon Boom Harmony is the leader in the 2D animation industry these days. It is a jack of all trades and, dare I say, master of all? It has frame-by-frame capabilities with rigging and 3D elements integration. Remember Rick and Morty? It uses Toon Boom Harmony for animation. Krita is a free software and has some frame-by-frame animation capabilities. Blender's Grease Pencil is a bit of an oddball. It allows you to create 2D animations in a 3D space. It is definitely not a traditional approach to animation at all, but an incredibly interesting one that's worth a shot. Who knows? Maybe it is the next step in the evolution of animation. TV Paint is yet another household name when it comes to frame-by-frame animations, as well as Clip Studio Paint. OpenToonz is also a great 2D rigging software. There are so many options. Some even use their favorite drawing software and then use the rigging functionalities elsewhere, like the game engine Unity, and then they use 2D animation packages that contain rigging tools and go from there. In the iPad realm, Procreate Dreams is more of a frame-by-frame animation software, while Toon Squid features rigging tools, although it definitely has frame-by-frame animation capabilities. Let's talk about these two methodologies of animation in the context of the industry. It is no secret that the frame-by-frame animation has slowly fallen off the face of the industry the more rigging became prominent and normalized in the 2D animation industry. Why? Money. Simple as that. Rigging is a far cheaper and efficient way of animating. No longer do animators have to hunt over the animation of each frame separately. All they have to do is slap a rig on it and go from there. This has revolutionized the 2D animation space and saved so much time and cost that it is only natural that corporations are favoring it over frame-by-frame animation. This has its downfalls, of course. No longer are animations flowy and dreamy like they used to be. They lack the artistic edge and charisma. But so long as people are watching and the corporations are raking in that money, does it really matter? If you think about it, the average Joe does not differentiate between something that has been animated frame by frame or rigged. Heck, even an animator might not, with the way technology is advancing and helping make rigged animations look smooth. This might not be as bad as it looks. If making animations and weaving these drawn stories is becoming easier and more accessible, how is that a bad thing? Besides, frame-by-frame animations is still very much alive in the indie scene, like all good legacy things. But one thing's for sure, when it comes to the industry, rigging is king. Hold on though. That is not completely the end of frame-by-frame animation in the industry. Well, maybe in the Western industry for sure. However, in the anime industry, frame-by-frame animation is still very much a thing. Animation giants like Studio Ghibli proudly use frame-by-frame animation, and their works are beloved and idolized. And for really good reason. Like Disney's old works, they are of a timeless quality, even if they use frame-by-frame animation. Nay, because of it. This brings up an interesting question. Which should you focus on learning to land a job in the industry? For Western industries, it is safe to say that rigging is very much in, and so learning it is very important to land a job. Although, learning frame-by-frame animation will help grant you valuable and priceless skills and will help you understand animation on a much deeper and solid level than rigging would. For Eastern industries, and namely the anime industry, learning frame-by-frame is a must as it is still very much in use. However, learning to rig can be quite helpful. As I am sure not everything is done in the frame-by-frame technique, we often see the implementation of 3D and rigged elements in anime. All in all, understanding which industry you're aiming to join, and then focusing on the technique that is mostly used, but also making sure to have a solid understanding of the technique that is not used much. This is because there's value in both, and they are usually used in tandem and are complementary to each other. Which to choose for personal projects? Okay, what if you want to use them for personal projects? That largely depends on preference, of course, but if you want to weigh your pros and cons before delving into what you want to do, here's the gist of it. Rigging makes for a much more efficient and easy process. The systems might be difficult to learn and get used to, but ultimately, once that learning curve is surpassed, you would have a much easier and faster time making your animations. Although rigged animations are hard to make look natural and usually lack that artistic feel, looking more commercial. As for frame-by-frame animation, well, the effort that goes into it is immense. But so is the payoff, if you do it well, that is. Frame-by-frame animation gives you freedom that rigging might restrict for an easier time animating. That freedom comes with a lot of effort and a great result. It's hard and time-consuming, but is the result worth it for you? It is also worth noting that these techniques do not have to be separate. You can use both of them. Frame-by-frame for high-visibility elements in the animation, and rigging for low-visibility elements. This way, what your viewer focuses on the most would be what a lot of effort goes into, and thus, what looks the best, and what is not a focus would be easier to animate with lesser quality that wouldn't matter as much, since it isn't the focus. You also gain valuable experience in both, which is great all around. And that was that for our video. What did you think? We'd love to hear your input in the comments. With that being said, we hope you enjoyed the video and we hope to see you in the next one.